Ladies and gents, welcome back and welcome to impromptu stream. One of these extra streams. I normally do a stream on Friday nights where I like to give back to the community. Thank you guys so much for watching all my videos throughout the week that I wake up super duper early in the morning to make these videos talking about news and politics around Canada. And then every once in a while, I'll get a guest that'll come in, and it's always a nice opportunity to have on another day of the week when these guests make themselves available to come chat. And well, I've had many really interesting guests come on the channel, and this time I've got a very interesting guest, and he's been on a lot of publications. He's been on mainstream media. He's been on Jordan Peterson's podcast, which I really enjoyed watching. I watched a lot of Jordan Peterson's stuff. And he's made news around the world, inspired a lot of people with the Freedom Convoy in 2022, back in February. Of course, everyone who's in here is familiar with that story. But here to tell his story about the course of events is BJ Dichter. BJ Dichter, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Oh man, catching up with you at the beginning of the stream just before going live. It's been a hectic day. So for me, I'm still suffering from the meat sweats. I had a barbecue yesterday. It was a really nice barbecue, and I put myself into a food coma. I'm still recovering. I had leftovers for dinner, and I'm just like, oh, I'm doing this podcast now. Anyway. Thanks for joining me.
Well, I'll tell you how I started my day. I got myself a little gift, and it arrived yesterday morning, and it was this little gift.
Oh, nice!
Courtesy of Amazon.
Oh, that's amazing!
And I got it to read just for some fun, and it's going to go on the bookshelf next to Grand Theft Auto 5. I assume that's going to trigger some people, and it is what it is.
Well, that's fantastic. People who are familiar with the channel know that I helped promote that book. I put that out, and I became really good friends with the author, Derek Smith. And yeah, we're good friends now. And he's a fantastic guy. He's just as good as the book, to be honest.
That's awesome.
And there he is in the chat right now, giving a super chat, saying just before.
Give him another plug.
There we go. There's another plug for a great Canadian author. Here
for all the Americans need to get this.
Yeah, all the Americans in the audience should go get yourself a copy of that book. Just got in before takeoff, just about cutting
he was
it
on a
loose.
flight or something.
Have a great stream, Clyde and BJ. If anyone has a pran, it's you guys. Yeah, please keep the pran that doesn't involve prancing. I'll leave all the prancing to Ro over at the War Campaign channel. He's the best prancer probably in Canada.
Anyway, I went on a stream this week actually.
I heard that. I was listening because I listened to his stream for the inquiry that we've been dealing with. Yeah. Why don't we, since we're on that, why don't we talk about that? What's your take on this inquiry?
A couple of things. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the commissioner, but then when you sit back and you look at the 50,000 foot view, it kind of makes sense. He's asking some questions that are not the questions of somebody who's a partisan liberal, despite the fact that people think Trudeau appointed him. They didn't. He didn't. It was Paul Martin who appointed him. And during the convoy, I had liberals starting to reach out to me, and there seemed to be a movement starting within the Liberal Party to throw Prime Minister Blackface Diversity over the bridge because they're getting sick and tired of his nonsense, even within that party. And they're kind of the Martin type liberals. Maybe not my cup of tea, but at least they're not insane. So this guy, the commissioner, Rouleau, I got to tell you, man, and when you think about it from the 50,000 foot view, look at it this way. He's retired already. He has a lengthy career dedicated to the law. People in the law take it very, very seriously. And what is this? He's got a commission named after him. This is his legacy. And I don't think anybody, irrespective of their party bent, if they're in a position where the whole mandate of their job is to be objective, I don't think they're going to throw their own legacy down the toilet to prop up and protect some spoiled kid who had no business ever being leader of the party, which is the position of many people within the Liberal Party. And I think he's one of them. So I think we might be pleasantly surprised, and it might be far more objective than we thought it was. I might be wrong, but I'm optimistic.
So you don't think he's in anybody's pocket? That's what you're saying? Because I hear a lot of
Would
people
you?
saying like, "Oh, he's a Liberal appointee, yada yada yada. He gave to the Liberal Party, but anybody could give to a political party. There's no laws against that, and many people donate to parties.
Yeah.
That's not an unusual thing, especially for someone in a position like his."
Well, as somebody explained to me who was a former cabinet member in the Liberal Party, because a whole bunch of them started reaching out to me and others, which is fascinating because they realize things can't go on the way they are. And it was explained to me that the Liberal Party is really 20 people. That's all it is now at this point, 20 people in PMO. Junior has no idea what's going on. He is, cloud nine. He likes the lifestyle. He's the relationships manager. So the 20 people in the PMO, Butts, and even though he says he's not part of it, but him and Katie Telford and Omar and Hoskins, like they're running the government, and the mascot goes out once in a while. But when they pushed for Trudeau to get elected, he was a long shot. Like everybody knew he was an airhead and has no business to be in politics. It was supposed to be Michael was supposed to be the one that goes into politics. So that they wanted the name Trudeau, and they worked out some sort of deal that, he would just be the mascot and they would run the government. It was a long shot. Nobody, like the old school liberals, I guess you call it corrupt liberals, I don't know. None of them supported it. And out of nowhere, a Hail Mary, Jerry Butts got $40 million over 4 years to get this kid elected. And then they were beholden to nobody because they didn't need support from anybody amongst the liberal establishment. And they told them all to take a hike. And here they have the party completely to their own. They can do whatever they want because they're not beholden to the kingmakers in the party. And now, several years later, they're completely isolated. They made fools of themselves around the world. And those people that they stabbed in the back, they're not there to help them anymore. And I said in a Twitter post several months ago that the people that will drive the stake in the political heart of Justin Trudeau will be the Chrétien Martin type liberals, whatever ones are left. And that seems to be what's transpiring.
Well, and I think a lot of people are trying to get away from this woke deal because woke is just, well, as the saying goes, get woke, go broke. You're not gonna. It doesn't last very long. You can play this like these platitudes and say you're down with the new thing long for a while, but as soon as it starts costing people money, that's when people okay, let's get out of this, right? And we're hearing and I know how politics work. They don't speak openly and candidly to anybody. We saw in CTV or CBC CTV a few different publications where we're talking about this recently that some of them are hoping to get away from the woke thing. And a unnamed source says within the Liberal Party, they don't accidentally leak things to the press. I believe.
100%. That's testing messaging is what that is.
Yeah, it's
but
saying,
you know what
hey,
I think?
Do you think people will latch onto this? We'll see what the readers of this publication say in the comments.
That's right.
And people are on board with it. Get rid of the woke. Out of here. Done with it. And I think it's going to kill their brand.
I think no.
Like it's done. It's
I think we should. I think we need to double down. Like I was considering when I go to this commission, should I perhaps decide to wear some prosthetic breasts and a blonde wig, right? Because maybe I feel extraordinarily feminine that day, right? Like, no. This is their rules. If I feel feminine that day and I want to transition, maybe I'll decide to go that way because you know what they say? The strongest form of protest is strict adherence to the rules. And the rules are so stupid right now that I could do that and claim human rights violations if they don't allow me in, right?
Oh, that's just, it's horrible. And that's what a lot of people think that teacher in Oakville is doing. They think it's a troll. They think it's not.
Oh, he is. He was the least woke teacher in the school, and he got reprimanded a number of times for not coming in line with. I have family in that part of the city.
Okay.
And he was reprimanded for it, almost lost his job, was going to be heavily disciplined for it. And I grew up with a teacher in the home, and so I know what a nightmare the boards of education can be. And I think this is he's close to retirement. He's like a year away from retirement or something. And this is the most, if that's the case, the most epic troll of human history. And he is a hero. If Jack Layton got a statue, this guy gets a statue, prosthetics included.
Oh, the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle.
That's right.
That's amazing. We'll never, there's a chance though, we'll never find out if it was real. Because I think
if he's smart, we'll never find out. Like, that would be even better. Like Satoshi Nakamoto with Bitcoin, we'll never know, was it real or not? And he just fades off into the sunset.
Okay, you have to explain that to me. Satoshi Nakamoto, what's the story there?
It's a Bitcoin reference. That's the guy who created Bitcoin. Nobody knows who he is.
Okay, so this is a good segue because you on Twitter are Bitcoin aficionado, BJ Dichter. Well, just have a look here. There you are on Twitter, and there's all kinds of stuff about Honk and Bitcoin in your profile. So what is that about? So like I'm not big on cryptocurrencies. I was never invested in them. I hear there's a lot of
okay.
So anyone who advocated for it, the liberals are using that as a tool to say, look what you did. You lost all these people a bunch of money. I always looked at cryptocurrency and the big boom of it as kind of like a .com bubble. So a real new things came into a market, a new market came available. And a lot of people came in because they saw it as something viable. Frenzy took place, and then a lot of bad businesses come in, bad people with bad motives, making all these, at the time it was the .coms, and then it was like cryptocurrencies for everything. There's a new flavor of cryptocurrency every other day, and there were pump and dump penny scams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so were the NFTs, and it all crashed. That all crashed. But what were we left with the .com? We were left with Google. We were left with Amazon, like some of the biggest players and like biggest parts of like the world economy at this moment. So tell me, what do you know about it without going too deep into cryptocurrency?
That's, I don't want to go into the rabbit hole because we don't want to make this
fair enough.
The Clyde Bitcoin channel, right?
I'm not a Bitcoin guy anyway, so.
Yeah. Just the short version, there's crypto and there's Bitcoin, and they're different. And Bitcoin is significant because it solved what's called the Byzantine generals problem, a mathematical problem that has existed since prior to the Byzantine Empire. Byzantine, Empire, yeah, of course. So this problem, mathematical problem, was solved by this Satoshi Nakamoto guy. Nobody knows who he is because it was a pseudonym, and he seems to have either disappeared or likely died since then. He's created this thing that is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is a completely decentralized network. Like, it's a peer-to-peer decentralized network. Remember Napster, when Napster came out?
Yeah.
It uses the same sort of technology. So it distributes a ledger of transactions that are pseudo-anonymous on millions of computers all over the world. And that's why it can't be stopped. Like, ironically, trying to ban Bitcoin would be like trying to ban coronavirus. So right now, when people talk about the crash, like, I don't know. I know people who bought Bitcoin at 9 cents a coin, and right now it's $20,000 US. Mm-hmm. We are in what's called a cycle. So it's a currency that you can't print into infinity. It's algorithmically driven. So every day we know exactly how much Bitcoin will exist. And there's a cap of 21 million, of which only 19 million have already exist. Only 2 million are left over the next 120 years. So the short version of all of this, so you understand what it is, so I'll get you interested. And Michael Saylor explains it best. Think of it as a digital bank account in cyberspace, to which there's a maximum of 21 million coins that will ever exist in this digital bank account. So they can't inflated away like a central bank does, and no one controls it. It's not controlled by anybody. And when you buy a little bit of Bitcoin, you're buying a small percentage of this 21 million coin account.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God for Bitcoin, because it's the only money that was able to get into the hand of the truckers on Wellington. Caribou and these Bitcoin guys that were running all these drives that were collecting money to help the truckers when all the money was blocked. They went around from truck to truck giving them $8,000 in Bitcoin. And for a bunch of them, like they told me, a couple of the drivers just broke down in tears because they're like, I'm late on my truck payment. I don't know what to do. Like, you've saved my life. I'll get back to work and continue. Like, it was a really emotional experience for Nick and the team that were getting the money to them. And it's because the government can't block it. And we're entering this era from the perspective of the Bitcoin people where we need separation of money and state. And they've always argued that if you get an authoritarian government, that you need something where you're completely free of the infrastructure. And it's ironic that people who are critical of Bitcoin, but they hate Justin Trudeau. Well, it's the Justin Trudeau dollars. We need to separate Justin Trudeau from our money. That's what Bitcoin does. And that's why it's important for the freedom movement and for those of us who want sovereignty.
Right. It looks like somebody's mining Bitcoin with your internet connection right now. It's slowing down a little bit. Hopefully that clears up.
Sorry about that, man.
No. It's all good. It's all good. Just your.
All right. Let me just make sure everything is shut off here.
Yeah. Your
All
image is just getting a little grainy there. Got all the audio perfectly for that answer to that. Now that's been discussed at length historically. So like the United States founding fathers, they didn't want a central bank authority. They didn't want the government to have the ability to manipulate the currency. Later, that happened with the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be an independent body, but then now we have the Bank of Canada, and we're going through that same problem now. So this has been a long-standing argument back and forth between people whether we should decentralize so before it was the hard money people, right? And it was gold, commodities, things like that, gold, silver, that sort of thing. So Bitcoin is somewhat comparable to that because of the scarcity idea.
Yes. So think of it this way, and we're spoiled in the Western world because we've never had to endure a currency collapse. Mm-hmm. But anybody who lives in Latin America or live in Argentina or Brazil, and you've had your currency completely collapse, they understand the importance of Bitcoin and decentralized money because they've had to endure a currency collapse. So they get on board right away. In the Western world, we haven't had to endure. So we look at it as an investment, but there they look at it as a store of value. And I'll give you an example. Like I lived in Latin America for much of my life. And there, they buy everything. They buy their cars and motorcycles they don't finance anything. You know why? Because they're worried about a currency collapse. So they don't leave the money in the bank for those of them who can have bank accounts. Mm-hmm. They buy assets in case there's an emergency because they know that will hold value. And in the case of El Salvador, they've made Bitcoin legal tender. And the reason they did that is because it's 70% of El Salvadorians had no bank account. I don't know if you've ever tried to bank in Latin America.
No, never.
I have. It's a nightmare. It's so much worse than here. So 70% of the population didn't have a bank account, and they have so many people living outside of El Salvador sending remittances back to their family. Well, that's why they're paying up to 30%, 40% in fees to Western Union to send money back to El Salvador.
Oh, wow.
Well, that doesn't happen with Bitcoin. And when they made it legal tender, instantly, everybody was banked. 100% of the population now had a bank account because of Bitcoin. And what's been the result? Within a year, their GDP went up by 10%, and their crime rate has absolutely plummeted. Because now people can actually store their value somewhere, and it's changing its society.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So somewhere actually does use it as a tenure, like people actually are using it as a currency. That I was not aware of.
Yeah, and
That I was
Panama.
not aware
Yeah, and Panama has made it legal to transact. There's a Senate bill in Mexico to make it legal for transactions. So Colombia has made it legal for businesses to hold some of their treasury in Bitcoin. So it's that old additive that doesn't matter what people personally think, the economics always wins. And in this case, it's both economics and freedom. And several hundreds of years ago, we dealt with 1493, the separation of church and state, which I know some people still don't believe in, but I think in general that was a good move. Well, now we're moving in the digital age to the separation of money and state, because if not, look what happened in Canada.
of.
They use money as a tool to punish us. I had my bank accounts frozen, for all the people who think I'm a Fed. My bank accounts, I had my corporate accounts, my credit cards, my lines of credit, everything was shut down. I couldn't buy I had a broken ankle. I couldn't buy medicine. I couldn't buy food. I couldn't buy anything. So, and you think that's going to be the last time? No. They've opened up Pandora's box, and they've now set a precedent that this is going to start, I believe, to become normalized. That, oh, my bank was frozen again. But if you have this digital ID that can just confirm who you are, then we'll unlock your bank accounts.
Yeah.
And if you go into big, right? How convenient is that?
Yeah, how convenient.
So, but if you're
that's what
storing
China's
your
using,
value,
right? This is the whole concept
that's
that
right.
China's got. They can shut you down. You like someone like me. I talk about the government. They don't like that. So my money's no longer good for buying train tickets or things like that. Whatever they want me to not be able to purchase, I could just shut me off. And
that's right. So that's why Bitcoin gets you off of that. It allows you to at least have a hedge against the fiat system.
So that leads me into the next question. So a lot of people were asking where is the Bitcoin? So there was I can't remember how many there was like $1 million something in Bitcoin that were put into a wallet. Now the government was able to control that. Like what happened to that? So a lot of people, the same people who are calling you a Fed, are saying you ran off with the money. So what happened there? And if the government is able to freeze that, well, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of Bitcoin being not freezable? What happened there?
Yeah. Okay, so first thing, Ray Epps was a Fed, and he told people to go in the building. That's what Feds do. I told people not to go in buildings. So it's the opposite of what a Fed does, okay? But no, so what happened was they managed to, because there was a whole team of people, Bitcoin people, who got together, and they came to my hotel room and said, hey, we're going to raise Bitcoin for the truckers. And I said, okay, sounds good, cool. And they ended up distributing it to 100 or so truckers. And the way they did is I don't know all the details, but they set up what's called a paper wallet. So you can convert Bitcoin actually into paper that you scan with a QR code and then unlocks it in somebody's phone. And there's a video on Twitter. I posted on my Twitter. I can post it again, where a guy was live streaming, and Nick comes up, or Caribou comes up, and he says, hey, here's an envelope for you. Remember I showed you how to download a wallet yesterday? Well, there's all sorts of instructions in here. There's a QR code, scan it. There's $8 grand in Bitcoin, and thank you for saving Canada.
That's incredible. Yeah.
It was an amazing moment. It really, I almost cried when I saw that. That was so awesome. But unfortunately, they didn't get all the Bitcoin distributed. They got like 800,000 and change, which right now would be significant. I think right now would be like 400,000. But anyways, they got
right. So if anyone held on to it, they lost a lot of the value.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're mid-cycle, so wait another 2 years and it's going to go up significantly. We know that historically, and there's reasons for that. But again, I don't want this to be the Clyde Bitcoin channel.
Yeah. Right? So I'm assuming that people got this Bitcoin, they exchanged it for Canadian money, and then they bought things with it.
I would assume so. Yeah. So, which is the utility of it. That was the whole point of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so most of it was distributed. There was, I think, because of course, Bitcoiners are nerds. They're all math nerds. And the last stat I saw, that 73% of all the Bitcoin was distributed to the truckers. The remainder was in Caribou's possession at his home, and he got raided. He got raided by the OPP and the RCMP. 15 officers showed up his place with a warrant, seized his computer, and, he's never been in trouble before, so he didn't know, hey, let me call my lawyer and tell him to go, so he can tell you to go F yourself, which is what I would have done. He got really worried. He's like, okay, here's my computer, and then where's your seed phrase, which is the combination? And he's like, here's the seed phrase. And immediately the OPP was trying to, I don't know if they were successful, they were trying to transfer the Bitcoin to an OPP wallet that they had set up already to basically confiscate his property.
Is that legal?
And it was a warrant. Now, it was a rubber stamped warrant by apparently a judge who rubber stamps everything from the police. That's what I'm told.
Right.
I don't know that for sure. And so anyways, to show how dirty they are, how dirty law enforcement is in that region of Canada.
Right.
And by the way, I have family in policing, so I'm not anti-cop in any way.
I don't think anyone in this whole community of people are anti-cop. The whole what was it? What was the thing about a year before the Freedom Convoy? It was not cancel the police, defund the police. Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Most ridiculous
Diane Deans, defund the police. And then she's like, give me all the police you can from across the country.
Yeah, what is...
Like, wait, I thought you're defund the police.
Defund the police, yeah. Diane Deans, she was on the stand just last week. Unbelievable. Yeah, so she was all about defunding the police, and clearly needed
so
it.
Let me finish this just so people, you can put this all to rest finally.
Yeah.
So he got a warrant, and whatever they did, I don't know if they moved it. Right now it's an escrow. But when I left the hotel, not Ottawa, despite what Ezra Levent said, I left the hotel on February 18th and went to stay with a friend of mine in Ottawa because I had a cast. I couldn't leave Ottawa. I had to get it removed. That whole week, I spent that entire week on the phone with lawyers fighting a potential warrant against me to take my computer and my phone and all that sort of stuff. But I know some good lawyers. I produce a podcast called Not on Record, Criminal Lawyers. And I called them up and I said, hey, I'm in Ottawa. This is the situation. And they said, okay. They kind of read me, a retainer, I guess, over the phone. And they took the number from the contacts of the police and all that sort of stuff. And they started calling and advocating for me. And I spent it was a stressful week, all week on the phone, fighting a warrant for what? Like, what do you want from me? And what the police were trying to do, the OPP were trying to do, because there's this class action suit and all the money was ordered to go into an escrow account, meaning nobody can touch it. All the money that got through from Give, Send, Go and GoFundMe. So there's 1.4 million from GoFundMe that got through. From GoFundMe, 3 point something from Give, Send, Go, or I wasn't the treasurer. Chad was the treasurer. He knows the exact numbers.
Right.
And then there was a few $100,000 or a couple $100,000 left in Bitcoin. All of that was to be ordered to go into escrow pending the class action suit. So what the police were trying to do was get a warrant for me to surrender the Bitcoin to the police the same way they raided Nick's house to gain access to the seed phrase. And it was a multi-sig wallet. It was confusing. I've never used a multi-sig, so I didn't really know. I was confused as well.
Right.
So were they setting it up. It was the first time. So they were trying to get me to surrender it. And my lawyer called him and said, let me explain to you why that's not going to happen, because that would be in violation of a court order. So what the police were trying to do was to get me to violate a court order to surrender money to them. That's how dirty they were in Ottawa.
Yeah, that's gross. So the police technically didn't have the ability to stop the transferring of Bitcoin. That's not something they could do. They had the possession of the laptop in which the Bitcoin account was on. That's where we're at there.
Basically, yeah. So what I did is I surrendered my seed phrase because I had a seed phrase to it as well. One of like a few people. And I surrendered it to the legal team to give it to the bankruptcy trustee to put in escrow. And from what I understand, All the money, everything is in escrow. So nobody's gotten a dime of anything. No one.
Right.
The only people that got any money were the truckers who got Bitcoin. And I think people were passing around, just handing out $100 here and there to truckers just to kind of support them and help them, to give them cash on the ground there. And that's about it. And that's pending this class action suit that is being litigated on by Champ, who is also litigating in the commission. Same guy who launched that class action suit for, I don't know, what is that now? $450 million? Why not $7 trillion? Let's just do $7 trillion. Like,
just want to put that pinky right at the corner of your mouth for that.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous numbers.
$400 trillion. That's what the lawsuit's.
It's getting ridiculous
Crazy.
nowadays. I mean, Alex Jones being sued for $1 billion. Like, it's just, it never ends. It never ends with these people. Yeah. But yeah, that puts a lot of that to rest. I know that a majority of the money that was it was donated to the original Give, Send, Go got refunded to most of the people who donated, and then they went and took that money and gave it to the. It was the first one was GoFundMe, and then Give, Send, Go got the money, and then they ended up refunding it back to people because they were afraid of the Canadian government getting their hands on it.
I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball that's interesting. The GoFundMe, yes, it was all 1.4 million was transferred. I sounded the alarm with Tamara and everybody else. I'm like, listen, I know people who deal with real money. We need a money manager, an investment banker, and a legal team who know Swift, know all this stuff that we can litigate. And they're like, well, we have an accountant. I'm like, it's a little different, but whatever. I was overruled, and I was already getting criticized of, you're making all the decisions. Like, okay, fine. So you know what? I'll stay out of it, right? Mm-hmm. But when so that money was the most of it was returned, was reimbursed, and then Give, Send, Go was started, I believe, by Chad, who was the treasurer, the accountant, him and Chris, because they know Jacob from Give, Send, Go. And we got up to, like, I remember having this conversation with Keith, our lawyer. It was at like $9 million, okay? And then Doug Ford, not Trudeau, Doug Ford sought an injunction against the $9 million from Give, Send, Go to block that money from getting to the truckers. That was not Trudeau. That was Doug Ford. He is equally guilty in this. And so I went to our legal team and I said, hey, Keith, I got an idea. Right? I know a little bit about international. My brother runs a big pension fund. I've grown up with lawyers. Like, I kind of know this space a little bit. So I said, I have an idea. Why don't you call someone? Because they're like, oh, what should we do? What should we do? We have this injunction. I'm like, well, what you're going to do is call a lawyer in the United States to set up a Delaware corp. We'll get a couple of people who are involved here to be on the directorship, but it's a Delaware, so we don't know who they are. Set up that corporation, move the money from Give, Send, Go into the Delaware Corp, let this all settle down, then we'll figure out what to do and how to distribute. Mm-hmm. And Keith says to me, oh, that won't change anything. And I looked at him with that face. What planet are you on? It's a different jurisdiction. It's a different country. This is how people, like, what do you mean that wouldn't change anything? I'll call my best friend, an attorney in Miami, and I'll have him set up the Delaware Corp. And you can talk to him, Keith, and they'll move it because that's what his business is. He deals with high net worth people from Europe who set up corporations in the United States. Just do it. Oh, no, that's not going to change anything. He just walked out. And that's when I knew, wait, something's wrong. There's something wrong here. I didn't know what it was, but that's one of those little stories that was going on behind the scenes that's not covered in the book, but I'll get into in my Substack moving forward.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the book. So you're launching a book, and this is let me just pop this up on here. I'm my own Jamie on this podcast, by the way, so I gotta pull this stuff up myself. Honking.
You know what? I was supposed to go on with them. I was getting a conduit to Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah. In
the last week, because I was talking to all the hockey players who are going to fly up. We're going to get 60 hockey players on stage with their jerseys, talking with the truckers. They wanted all day to just talk with truckers and tell their stories. Like, it was going to be amazing. But then Prime Minister Blackface turned Canada into a banana republic, and then well, there you go.
Well, we'll get into that. Let's talk about your book, Honking for Freedom. Right now, it's in pre-release, so you can. How does that work? I don't normally. I buy stuff on the day that it's out, but you can sign up for pre-release. Tell us about that.
So we're just waiting for the links to be active because we're going to be on multiple platforms. There's quite a few. Anybody who's a trucker who will understand. There's a lot of truckers in the U.S. who don't like Amazon, and maybe that's something to do with going to Amazon for like a 20-minute pickup, and it takes 14 hours. And there's a lot of that goes on with Amazon.
Oh, okay.
So we're putting on multiple platforms, but the form. I have a team that's working on it. And so the formatting's got to go through a process and all that sort of normally takes a couple of hours. And I'm lucky enough, or we're lucky enough, that it takes 72 hours because, well, it's about Freedom Convoy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just before this stream, I actually got a message from one of the team saying, okay, they're charging me for stuff. So that means it's been approved. And we're just waiting, hopefully in the next day or so, that you'll be able to go there and click a link and pre-order. But if you go there today, you can just sign up, enter your email, and then you'll get the link emailed to you as soon as it's active.
Oh, okay, perfect. And there's a promo for the book. I put the link in the description down below for everyone to go watch the promo. We're just having a chat here instead of playing that again. They can go check that out. But yeah, go check out the link for the pre-sales. That's where we're at with that. Now I wanted Oh, go ahead.
And just to let you know, so the pre-sale is now. I'm doing a bunch of events already. So we're going to be doing one in Toronto on November 7th, doing one in Ottawa before I go to testify. So if you're in Ottawa, I'm going to be with a bunch of Bitcoiners. I'm going to be speaking and getting together in a pub and just hanging out, having some drinks and eating together. And on the 17th, I'll be doing that in Boston with some people, the whole Massachusetts group. And then the book is going to be released on November 11th. And that was deliberate because I think there are people in our political class who need to be reminded what Remembrance Day was about and why people fought and died for this country. And it's not for some idiots in politics to play footsies with other people in politics who are destroying our country, which is exactly what's happening.
Right.
And I think we need to put an end to it. And I'm hoping that statement that this coming out on Remembrance Day about what the Trudeau regime did to this country is a salient reminder to some people, and hopefully will wake them up.
Well, there was one tweet that I noticed this week. This one caught my attention. Breaking: a group of radical leftists found out that the venue that the Freedom Convoy organizer BJ Dichter was planning to have his book launch and called multiple threats leading to the venue backing out. Dichter is still planning on having the event at a venue with some mild courage. So what's the story behind that?
It was going to be in this area called Danforth, where I ran as a conservative candidate here many years ago when I thought, hey, I can get involved in politics and actually help change things, which, well, so much for that. But the venue, they were getting political pressure. The city councillor, who is up for election here, by the way, is an actual communist. Like, she used to be head of the Communist Party of Canada in their Manitoba branch. That's the garbage that we elect in Toronto to represent us. And that was happening when I was a candidate. Like, they're all getting on and, attacking me on Twitter. Like, that's what they do. They're just Twitter bots.
Yeah.
So they did that to, it's a very close-knit community. It's the Greek community. A lot of people know each other. And the family that owns it was getting threatened by other people saying, oh, we're not going to do business with you anymore. And the BIA and giving them problems. And then they started getting calls of vandalism, that if you have Dichter there or if you have Peterson there, because Jordan Peterson endorsed the book and we were trying to do something with him. So they got wind of it somehow. I think maybe the owners might have just been excited and told some people, and they got to the wrong people. And they just said, like, we're getting constant threats of vandalism and repercussions. So we love you, man, but we just can't. So I said, okay, no problem. And that was it. I don't really blame them. But since we've since found another venue, so I hope Antifa comes outside, because there's going to be a bunch of comics that are going to sit there with a PA and make fun of you kids who work at home and ask you where your prosthetic boobs are. That's basically what's going to happen.
Well, so like, what was it? Jordan Peterson, one of his podcasts recently said he found a way around these Antifa types and the vandals and the violent and the rhetoric of every time he has a speech at a university or somewhere else. He found a way around it by doing it at about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
when it comes
his lectures, he used to do that. Do them early in the morning. They can't get out of bed.
They're just not going to get out of bed.
Yeah.
They're more the conviction is strong, but just not strong enough to get out of bed after a night of drinking, apparently. So, any plans to do that, or are you still going to do it in the evening?
Oh, no, I'm still going to do it in the evening. I like trolling them. I like when they get angry. I want them to get angry, which is what I did with the fake news media during the Freedom Convoy. And that's why it went global. I mean, like I'll tell you here, I was Tamara's Twitter account. That was me. That wasn't Tamara. I was running multiple accounts. The Quicken Report, I was running that. No one else. And I leveraged that. And I explained this media strategy in the book, actually, chapter 11, if I'm not mistaken. I was leveraging all of that and the audiences and people that I know, because I have met a number of quite famous people over the years, and I quietly reached out to all of them, asked them for help, that I need get some attention on the Freedom Convoy, and I'm going to ice out the fake news media. I'm going to ban them from our press conferences because that's what they deserved. And it seemed to work.
Yeah, it built up a lot of following for people like me who just wanted to put things out online because we got more recognition from from people for having told the true story, the actual story of what was going on. And during the convoy, it was unbelievable. It was remarkable how the media and the way they portrayed the story, and this new form of media of live streaming on YouTube were painting a completely different picture. People were tuning into the live streams, for which there's an archive now. I don't know if you knew about this, but I have this up on the website here. I can put this in the description as well for people who want to check this out. But it's convoylive.com, and it's an index, and you can go through every date. You set the date. It shows you a map of where everyone who was live streaming at that given moment in time
that's awesome.
were, which direction they were even facing. It shows all the police blockades, like the barriers from the police. And it's a real time, like all the different people live streaming, and there are links to the actual archive videos of what was happening. So you can't lie when you see a timeline like this, and people can actually go through it and say, oh, where was the violence? Where was the misogyny? Where was the patriarchy that came rolling into town? All this stuff. Well, and it's epithets. And there's no truth to it. It's just words. It's garbage.
For sure. And I gotta just interject for a second. I gotta thank you and everybody else who had Twitter Spaces, who were streaming. It's because of you guys that I was able to get all those clicks when I was doing my interviews, because I just say, just go to YouTube, just go, you can watch it. There's people on the ground doing it. And some of the people, the amount of dedication they put into this, like, Joe Rampart and Wapog, and like a whole bunch of these people I've gotten to know, Jennifer and James, and we've all become friends over time, that they were doing streams for like 24, like Twitter Spaces for 24 hours straight. And I'm like, I appreciate it, but you guys got to sleep, But they were so desperate for change, and the political class has ignored all of them. And finally, there were some truckers out there who said, enough, we're going to come and speak up for all of you. It was because of you guys that we were able to make all of this work. So it's not about, the Freedom Convoy organizers or the truckers or whatever. Like, you guys played just as much an important part in this as the rest of us, because we couldn't have done it without your support. And I specifically thank you for just trying to get as much attention on this as possible.
Yeah, well, I just felt like
And that's you and
everybody,
Mr.
not
Sunshine
just me. Yeah.
Baby and all. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them that, I only caught a little glimpse of a couple of you guys. Like I tried, but you had to see the chaos that we were dealing with. It was
I
crazy.
believe it.
I'd be up at 6:30 in the morning and in bed by 11:30 at night with no honking, by the way. I didn't hear any honking at 11:30 at night, just so you know. And I tried a little catch a little bit of the videos, but it was only after in March that things finally started to slow down that I was able to go back. And I'm like, oh my God, Russell Brand did a thing on us,
Yeah.
or Redacted did, or Scott Adams, or I'm like, oh my God, I missed all of this stuff. And but it was amazing, and I thank you guys for everything you did. Like
well, yeah, I can totally understand you being so busy. I mean, I was busy. I never quit my day job to do this stuff. Still pulling wrenches every day, mechanic in the automotive field. But yeah, no, I took a lot of the time out of my day to report on this. But these are my people. You know what I mean? I felt this like emotional attachment to what was going on there. It's very important. I felt it very important to get the message out. I couldn't get in a truck and drive to Ottawa. I thought I would be way more useful to do this, to just get in front of the camera and talk about what was happening. Get more videos, more eyes on the same thing, and that's where I think my main focus was there. But
thank you.
Enough about me. About me. Now, this is my conversation with you about you. So yeah, let's and that's an interesting thing. So you mentioned the trucks that didn't have horns blaring at night. Now, this isn't something you're going to hear from the media. You're going to hear the media saying the trucks, they'll conveniently leave out that detail, right? It was so, I couldn't think, I couldn't do anything. How are the trucks' horns going? I mean, I was watching on the live streams, but they stopped at what time? They all made a rule. We're going to stop at a particular time.
Think of it this way. How long does it have to go on until a guy who's got his family and kids in his truck, because there's a bunch of people who are on the road and they brought their kids, until they get on the CB and say, guys, knock it off. My kids need to sleep. Yeah, just think logically. Like we all had to sleep too. So did their kids. So this nonsense of, there was honking through the first night, there's no question, and people were showing up the second day. I get that. But it was localized around Parliament Hill, and there's nobody who lives there. Right. For security reasons, you don't have residential neighborhoods close to Parliament Hill. Just it's basic security. It's all industrial buildings and stuff like that. So I think they're suffering mass hysteria that has been spawned in by the fake news media, which is why I banned them from our press conferences. And I banned them for a couple of reasons, just so you know. Mm-hmm. First was, I've been in media scrums before. I know how media works. I've been producing podcasts for years, and I know quite a few quite well-known people who've explained how media works from their perspective. I knew if the media came to our press conferences, they would bring their old, 30-year-old cameras they should be chucked in the garbage because they could just use an iPhone. But what is it? It's a pissing contest. They're going to come with a big camera, take up half the floor space. They're going to have 2 crew members and a reporter. They're going to push everybody out of the way, take most of the floor space. And what are they going to do? They're going to call us names. They're not going to listen to us. And then they're not going to get any views. What do I want that for? Right? Like that doesn't help us. Because the only people who watch fake news media are other journalists and people in government. Nobody else watches it. And, Jordan Peterson and I were talking about this last month. He was giving me an example with Dr. Oz. And I think it was a Dr. Oz program, some mainstream program he went on. And he's like, I got a 0% increase in book sales. So do you know what I have to do to have a 0% increase? He said, I did a podcast the next day, and he told me the number that came in. It was significantly more
than zero.
So nobody watched. Yeah, exactly. So nobody watches it. And the second thing is, I didn't want them to have footage. So I know how corporate media works. There's a reason they all have their own photographer taking the same picture and they don't share it. It's for intellectual property rights. And I knew if I denied them the opportunity to come to our pressers, they wouldn't have any footage at all. And they wouldn't be able to target and smear us in the media continually like they've done to people in January 6th. And there are some people, I couldn't believe it, surrounded by these people who know nothing about media, but they know how to watch TV. So therefore they know media strategies. And they're telling me that, oh yeah, we got to every day, we got to call the media. I'm like, we have to have a news conference every day. I'm like, what is this, a hostage taking? No, that's not how modern media works or alternative media works. Like, yeah, but we have to call them. I'm like, you sit there and complain all day long. It's fake news. And then the first thing you want to do is run to the fake news to go on camera so they can quote mine you or take you out of context. No, we're not doing that. We're doing this strategy. And that seemed to work. But there were a few people that just wouldn't listen and then went off and did their own news conferences. And that's the only footage they have because of intellectual property rights. That's why when you see Tamara Lich, you only see that one video of her in front of the camera because that's the only thing they have. And the people from the post-millennial, it was great. I went on Angelo's podcast and Angelo said to me, he's giggling. He said it was great to be on our stream yesterday and see that the only footage CTV and Global and the CBC had was the post-millennial footage. They had to come to our feed to see what was going on. And I said, yeah, that was the whole point. I was trying to make this alternative media's opportunity to shine. And that's why I had True North and the National Telegraph and the Post-Millennial and Epoch Times all in our press conferences.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to be at those press conferences, but I wasn't in Ottawa, obviously. But and
they weren't, and it wasn't 15 minutes unscripted. Our first press conference was 2 hours and 20 minutes. I started off by saying, this is why the fake news isn't here. Now, it was me, Tamara, and Chris Barber. I said, we are here for as long as you want until you have no more questions to ask. And they've never been, Andrew Lawton told me, I've never been in a position in a press conference where I've run out of questions. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole idea. So everybody could hear us in our full context.
Yeah. And the other remarkable thing was that no politicians came to speak with you at any point.
Nope.
And
nope.
none.
Nope.
And that's across the board. Like all of them.
Nope. Yeah, not one of them.
That's being unbiased in my reporting on that right now. So
well, the one who did, I'll give you you guys wouldn't know because so the book touches on some of this stuff, but I don't know if we put this in the book. So I'll tell you. We had one politician reach out to us to want to meet with us, and that was Candice Bergen, who was head of the Conservative Party at that time. And this is when conservatives get angry with me. But I'm sorry, cut the bullshit, and I'll be honest with you.
Right after O'Toole was ousted, by the way.
Yes. I told him years ago. I told him I'm going to get you.
For not supporting the convoy as it was coming out, wiffle waffling. Right, he was doing the wiffle waffle.
That's right.
And this is what particularly annoys me about politicians in any given instance, no matter what side they're on, is they won't take a principled stand. They'll just wait it out and see where the direction goes, and then they'll try to ride that wave instead of being the person that we all want is that principled person who's going to come out and say, no, this is what's right. And they never. No,
if you're principled, you get called a Fed. That's what happens. You get called a Fed if you're principled.
In your experience.
So Candice's office called us. They reached out to either Tamara or one of the lawyers. I can't remember who it was. And I remember is in one of the hotel rooms, because we had to keep shifting our hotel rooms because of death threats from the tolerant left, by the way.
Right.
So it was in one of the hotel rooms, and I was with Tamara, and so we got a message that Candice wants to meet with us. And they're like, oh, okay, great. And I said, wait. I was going to be the party pooper. But I'm like, what do you mean she wants to meet with us? Explain this. And they said, oh, she wants to get together and go to A&W. I'm like, oh, for a photo op? You can tell her, nope, thanks, bye-bye. And they looked at me, I'm like, why? I'm like, listen, I know that party. I know how they operate. This is what's going to happen. Candace is going to get us together in an A&W, and she's going to say, we're glad you're here. We support the truckers. We have your voice. The conservatives are fighting for you, but you can take your ball and go home now. We'll take it. We'll take over from here. I said, that's exactly what she's going to do. So tell Candace, if she wants to get together with us, she can come here through the back door into the hotel room. We can sit and have a meeting, and she can tell us what they can do for the truckers and for ourselves. And I said, send that message back. And Tamara looked at me and she kind of got it. She understood. She knows how they work. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, tell them that. So we sent the message. Do you think Candace called us back? No, she ghosted us. And the next day was when she was in Parliament and she was coming out of the chamber and the media was there and they asked her a question and they said, so Candace, what do you think about the truckers and whatever? She said, well, we hear the truckers. We support them. We're going to fight for them, but it's time to go home now. And I said to them, I said, aha, you see, I told you what would have happened if we were standing beside her when she did that. That means the convoy would have been over because visually we would have had all the parties against us. And she got roasted for that, which is exactly what she deserved.
Wow. So it was like a co-op thing. She was trying to get in there and
oh, this you do all the time.
So this is so I'm just learning about this. I'm learning about the ins and outs of the political.
Oh, I have so many stories from inside politics, man. I got so many stories.
Well, the thing that we're learning, and a lot of Canadians are paying attention to this inquiry right now, is how disorganized and not on the ball politicians are. So we have this image, this perception of what the political. I'm getting my volumes low. That's what people are telling me. Hold on 1 second. I'm getting closer to the mic. So we have this political elite, and they're the imagery that we're all supposed to have is that they have their act together. They got their game together. They're putting things out there. They want to be the leaders of this nation, and they're just not all together. There's too much infighting. There's nothing's getting done, and everybody's just kind of looking out for themselves and willing to throw anybody under the bus that gets in their way. And this is what's coming out now. But again, this is what I'm just learning this, and as I'm learning this, Canadians are learning this, and it's just it's unbelievable. It's the curtain's been drawn back and we know who the wizard is now. And he's a dysfunctional loser. You know what I mean?
It's so true. It's so true.
It's where we're at. And we're told we should put all of our faith in these people, and this is what we're getting. So what do you think because you know the inside baseball, how do we turn this around? Because people in this movement of the freedom movement, people who want the overreaching of government to go away, are not what the media are claiming. They're not people who are trying to overthrow the government and take over. They're not people who are trying to dismantle the system. People want the system we have. They just want the corruption gone, and they want the overreach to end. What's our path forward in this?
It's going to be generational, this change. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to take a while. And so I think that's the first thing. There's no magic button that we press that changes anything, right? Just to bounce back to your comment when you said, the media is saying that people were there to overthrow the government. I said, quote, on Jordan Peterson's podcast, just on his channel alone, got close to 1 million views. I said specifically and directly, we are not here to overthrow the government. That's what elections are for, right? We have a political system. I don't know, Clyde, how could I make it any more clear than that? Like, is it the wax in the ears that the media doesn't hear that? Like I said specifically that, but they still go with that. So one of the big problems is the fake news media, and we have to destroy it. Now they're destroying themselves.
Absolutely.
And which is what I was trying to do with my strategy. I knew they would dig their grave, and we were just going to pop them in. That was the goal. And they're doing it again with the commission, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to run a narrative that's completely counter to what people are saying. In terms of, I think there's two different things. There's the political class. You call them the elites. I call them the scavengers. That's what they are. They're high-level scavengers. And people don't like it, but that's what they are. That's how they behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's them. There's the political class, and then there's the bureaucracy, right? And I grew up with a family member in the bureaucracy. That's why I understand a little bit how it works, because I heard those stories growing up of how dysfunctional it is. This is why, this is my gripe with conspiracy theories that include the government, whether it's contrails or whatever. Like you see in this commission, how disorganized and dysfunctional they all are. And they're also stabbing each other in the back. How do you have a conspiracy with that? Like, that just doesn't jive. It doesn't work out, right? So the political class, the bureaucracy, and we've seen from policing, and I had a feeling this was going on. That's what I told, people were saying, we should reach out to the city. And I said, like, what? That's not how negotiation works. They come to us first. Oh, but we should reach out. I'm like, have you never negotiated before? That's not how business works. That's not how this works. Mm-hmm. It's because I had a feeling it would be complete chaos. That one group they're all going to be pointing at each other. That the federal government's going to say it's the city's going to say it's the police is going to say it's the federal police, they're going to say it's the PLT and blah, blah. And what have we seen?
Exactly.
That's exactly what was going on, to the point that they started screaming and yelling at each other, and we had a lot of friction on our side because we had many different groups and many different people trying to sabotage the convoy. And they were getting us to fight with each other. They were starting fights within so that was a problem in itself. But I didn't realize how much worse the government was than us. Like, okay, we had our trials and tribulations, but we eventually started slowly to sort things out. And then some people came in and just ruined everything. But the government itself, like, this is how it operates. This is why, if you were never a small government person before, you probably should be now. Because look, all they do is try to defer responsibility to whoever's the closest department to them. And that's what they did. And then it just finally, everything hit the fan. And what did they do? They just reacted in the worst possible way, going to, the last resort as their only resort. And they embarrassed themselves all over the world.
Absolutely. The nuclear option, suspend all civil liberties and just come in with jackboots and freeze people's bank accounts. I'm still seeing in the chat. People ask him about his bank account. Yes, your bank account was frozen.
Bank accounts, credit cards, lines of credit, business account, everything. Like, when I logged on, I'll tell you how it happened. And I explained in the book. I left the hotel on the February 18th. Why? Because Keith Wilson said you should leave. And I'm like, why do I gotta leave? I got a broken ankle. I'm in a wheelchair. What do you think? They're gonna break down the doors like Anne Frank's attic and haul me out of here? Like, I'm just doing interviews, man. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, it was 20 minutes. We were arguing. He's like, you have to leave. I'm like, fine, I'm going to leave. Fine. He convinced me. He said to me, somebody has to speak for freedom. And if you get a gag order, then you can't speak, because Tamara and Chris had already been arrested. So I'm like, fine, I'll try to leave. Keith, I don't know if I can. I'll try to get an Uber, but whatever. So I got an Uber, got to a friend's house who lived in Ottawa. And I said, listen, thanks, because I'm here a few days early, whatever. Why don't I get dinner? I'll order us Uber Eats. I'll get something, whatever. Declined. Why is it declined? Again, declined. Kept getting declined.
Just to cut you off there. You were able to order Uber Eats in Ottawa during?
Oh yeah, the whole time. The whole time.
So that was the big joke that came up in the inquiry, because they were saying one of the witnesses there said Uber Eats was even shut down. I couldn't get Uber Eats, and immediately everyone was...
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be politically correct for a second and say she can go a few meals without Uber Eats. But anyways, that's true. That's what everybody was thinking, isn't it?
I'm not pulling up a picture. I'm not pulling. Jamie's out to lunch. I'm not.
Come on, do it. No.
But okay, so sorry, you were trying to get your Uber Eats, which was absolutely available. in Ottawa
I
at
was
the time,
absolutely available
and
the entire.
you
I
were
Ubered to
declined.
her house, and it was declined. I went onto my bank, I logged onto my bank, and it was weird, man. There was still a balance there, but it's my whole history was gone, like erased. Like there was a message saying, when you start banking with us, your banking history will appear here. That was for one bank. The other one just
Wow,
canceled my user login and my ID. So I entered my account. It said, no such account exists. It was crazy.
that's terrifying. That's terrifying. Way more
Yeah.
than somebody knocking on your door, hauling you away. You have recourse in a situation where someone hauls you away. You'll see your lawyer. You'll all of these things, but they just shut you off. They just turned you off.
Well, like I said, I spoke at Bitcoin Miami, and the person who was hosting the panel, it was Luke, the guy who uncovered the Epstein Island debacle. He's the one who discovered what Epstein's Island was. And I said, Epstein never had his bank accounts frozen, did he? But we did. For
That's
what?
insane.
I wasn't charged with the crime. I was not even questioned by the police at that time. I never was questioned. I had lawyers just telling them to lay off, sort of thing. Did nothing. I have no criminal record. Nothing. We just had a protest. And what was it? And
A lawful one at
I'm
that.
going to explain. It was illegally parked trucks. We brought in martial law for illegally parked trucks. That's how incompetent our political class is, to the point that they're dangerous. Their incompetence is dangerous, and if it continues, it'll get people killed. That's what's going to happen if this continues.
Yeah, if there's ever a significant protest like this, we're looking at situations right now where we might have we might see farmers gathering together, the way the government's pushing in on the agricultural business at this point. They could.
Well, I've spoken to some farmers, because we had a lot of farmers supporting us.
Yeah.
It wasn't just truckers. It was truckers, farmers, and people in the fisheries industry. We're all protesting across the country. Somebody told me when we were there, like we had like a command ops and whatever it was, that apparently at one point there were 120 points of entry into the United States, into Canada, that were closed, that were shut down. What happened in New Brunswick? Was it New Brunswick? I think it was New Brunswick. Where was it? Houston, that made it illegal to drive a truck in a convoy. So a lot of truckers have family in Nova Scotia in the fisheries industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did is they went out into their boats and they blocked the ports.
Oh,
because
wow.
everybody was fed up. So when people say fringe minority, no. We were everyone. Farmers, people in fishery, truckers, everyone participated in this. And they kept that very quiet. And you know what else they kept very quiet? That when they shut down the bank accounts, apparently somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 trillion dollars of Canada's economy vanished like that. That's what it cost us.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But progress is gonna cost. That's the fact. If you have a government that's overreaching, you're gonna have to. Yeah. There has to be some cost bared there. Now they're talking about, the convoys blocked traffic, and there was so much money that was lost in economic, over the borders. Ambassador Bridge was one where the protesters, they took up one lane. There were several lanes on the Ambassador Bridge. They took up one lane. The police then subsequently blocked the other lane, and then that was what the blockade was there. So again, it's illegal parking in the middle of a bridge, but it's not an excuse for the Emergencies Act, because they dismantled that protest anyway prior to the invocation of the act. But the government's saying that we lost all this money in trade. Well, how much? We lost 50% of the tourism industry alone just because of the Arrive Can app after the pandemic was over. Right. So they have no justification in saying you guys lost this money. Well, you're losing us money. I mean, who's the dairy lobby, for all people who don't know, lose us a lot of money because of tariffs and trade stuff that happens there. I don't know what people's perception of the dairy lobby is, but it's not a food group, that's for sure. as we all learned growing up.
Clyde, it's simple. They cherry pick their outrage and they point it in one direction at their opposition all the time. That's the strategy.
Yeah.
Simple.
And that's what we're seeing now. But everybody's in a cluster. Everybody's in a cluster because they're not unified in their message. They're all just trying to save their own skin as this inquiry goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah.
So there are a few books about the convoy that have come out over the
Mm-hmm.
months and the months after the convoy. You just purchased one of the best ones, I think.
It's amazing. Can I just give Derek another plug? Buy this book. Whenever you're having a bad day and you feel like really annoyed with your boss, read this book. It'll just make you feel better.
It'll make you feel better. It does. It does. I have a signed copy. I'm really proud of on the desk there. But so a few books have come out. What's the insight that your book stands above the fray? And brings
a couple of things. I mean, I was in a unique position compared to many. There are many times I was just me, Tamara, maybe one other person, sort of thing, making decisions. So that's one aspect, that there's a number of unique stories that I could tell that nobody else could tell. The other thing is I did it with a friend of mine, and this is kind of like, Elon Musk and Scott Adams talk about the simulation, the planets align, like everything just kind of works out perfectly in some weird way. I became friends with somebody many years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and we go for coffee every week. He's a former investigative journalist and a published author. And we just go for coffee because he's kind of, on an ideological journey as well, realizing how dangerous things have gotten politically.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's a fair assessment, but that's kind of my interpretations of what he would say. So don't attribute that to him directly. But and then here we are. We have this big event that I'm in the middle of, and I realize, like, I got to get so much of this on the record. And I'm like, I've been going for coffee with somebody every week. Like, this is perfect. So I reached out to him and I said, listen, John, can you teach me how to write a book? And he said, well, I was thinking the same thing. This might be pretty good. So his skills as an investigative journalist for decades was invaluable. It took 2 months just to put together the timeline. Because I don't know, man, it was like one long crazy day. So many things happened every day. It was so dense.
Mm-hmm.
So he went chronological order, looked at the interviews, would basically interview me. Let's get the timeline sorted out. That took a couple of months before even writing a word. And so we did our best to make sure it's as accurate as possible. We also told some other stories. So, for example, John went out to meet with Dave from Live from the Shed, and he had the story where the guns were pulled on him when he was apprehended, and nobody believed him other than the New York Times, of all publications.
Yeah,
all right. Canadian publications ignored him, but the New York Times came to bat for him, which I thought that's great. That's a possible sign of changing forward slowly. Just store one chapter, 2 chapters just on the Bitcoin part. So you can see there's a few chapters in the book that I have nothing to do with. It's not mere significant stories, but in 1 chapter, 2 chapters throughout, intermingled with where I enter the timeline and some of the chaos that I was dealing with from the hotel room, from that, it's really, I know it's really weird that you get on your computer and like, okay, I have an interview with Jordan Peterson today.
That's insane.
Okay. Or Tucker Carlson wants to have another interview, or Hannity's doing another interview with you, or whatever. It was so weird to be in that circumstance. And I just wanted to share it with everybody, because I thought not only would it add value to all of it, but the 4 pillars, I call them, of the convoy. And I get so happy when I hear people say it, because I remember I was here in my place when they started in Vancouver, thinking, how can we encapsulate the mood and the feeling of what we want to do? And I know Tamara really well. Tamara is she's a very positive, energy focused type person.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to when I was a teenager, going to Grateful Dead concerts or Fish concerts or the Allman Brothers or whatever. And I'm like, that's the vibe we need. peace, love, unity, and freedom. Because if we're not in a state of anxiety, and if we're in a state of lovingness and reciprocity and caring for one another, then the government is no match for us, because you can't kill people who are loving and passionate. And that's what it ended up being. And for me, I feel like that's my life achievement, of helping all of these people who have been stressed and losing their businesses and losing their lives for the past 2 years, finally rediscovered freedom and met friends that I hope will be friends for life. And I went to a barbecue in the summer sometime. There's about 120 people who were all hanging out together in Ottawa, and I think Wellington Street, if I remember correctly. And they were getting each other food and water and taking care of each other the whole time. And they regularly meet and get together. And there's this strong bond of friendship that only could come out of this event. And that's what I wanted the book to show people. I want people to be able to read it, get additional context so they know what we were going through, to help answer some of the unanswered questions like what you've asked me here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want them to be able to give it to their bleeding heart boss or friend or cousin or neighbor and say, I know you're not a supporter of it, but just read this. Just read this book. It'll give you a different insight and a positive perspective. And so that was the goal in what I was trying to do.
That's amazing. That sounds great. Sounds great. I know a lot of people who were affected personally by the convoy saw it as this great movement of people who are coming out in a peaceful way, a very peaceful way. Like I know when it comes to governments have a monopoly on violence. So the one thing that you never use is their tool against them, because they'll win. They'll always win in that fight. And when you guys came out pushing this idea of peace, that was the big selling point. And it was normal everyday people. Like this wasn't like political types. This was Joe from down the road and Phil from up the street. You know, like these were regular everyday people, and that's what I think was so incredibly inspiring about the whole situation. These were our neighbors and mechanics and truck drivers.
Also, Clyde, like there were some nights that I remember specifically. You know, one night I remember specifically, I finished, it was either Newsmax or GB News. One of them, I did an interview with them, and I went back to my computer in the next room over, and I opened it up, and I was basically managing, I was using Twitter as the primary distribution tool for information. Okay, that was the primary one I was using. And there was multiple counselors, myself and Tamara and a few others. And I would get all these messages from people that I don't know, and there were thousands. Honestly, I couldn't keep up. There were so many messages. They're still in there, and I still haven't collected a lot of them. But I remember I had 2 messages which were identical, but from different people. And it was the first one I remember specifically. It was a woman out west in, I think, Saskatchewan, if I don't remember. I think it was Saskatchewan, if I remember correctly. And she said, I have 2 kids. I'm a single mother, and I've been suffering depression, severe depression. I'm medicated, and I was going to end my life. The only reason I've been waiting is because I have kids and I don't know what to do with them. So I've been trying to figure out how my kids will be taken care of if I commit suicide. And then I saw the trucker convoy, and I realized I'm not alone. There's other people who felt alone and who needed something and needed to come together. And she said, I can't tell you how much life you've all given back to me, that you've revitalized me. And like those, I'm not doing it justice. Those were difficult messages to read. I know they're positive, but it's difficult to understand that that's what people were going through. But it's those sorts of messages that, you go to sleep and you'd almost be in tears, and then wake up the next morning rejuvenated, saying, all right, it's time to kick in the gear. Got to help some of these people, and we got to make sure we help them get their lives and their freedom back. And I got so many messages like that. Like it was heart wrenching.
That's heavy. That's really heavy. I know some people that drove out there. I have friends that actually drove out there, and the messages that they were getting from at every truck stop, they were getting letters from kids, and
Oh, so amazing. Yeah, the kids on the CD, that video.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did you ever see that?
I didn't see that one.
Thanking
No.
the truckers. Oh, I have it recorded somewhere. Like somebody put together a video of all these kids whose, dads have trucks or they have CB radios in their home. Just like little 3-4-year-old kids saying, "Thank you, truckers. Thank you. Drive safe. Sleep well tonight." Like, it's amazing.
That is amazing. That is amazing. BJ, I want to thank you for coming on and talking with me today. And I want to
anytime, brother.
I want to keep this line of dialogue open. I know you've had some tough times with people have their conspiracy theories about things, and sometimes you end up on the wrong end of that.
What are you gonna do?
And well, I think at the end of the day, you helped organize one of the greatest things that ever happened in Canadian history, and that's something to be very proud of. That's something to definitely hold you up. Something that can really, oh man, it's heart-wrenching for me to just even think about like everything that went into this. And I really appreciate everything that you did, and I wish you amazing success in this book and putting it out there.
If I can add a couple of plugs on top of the book. So for the book, go to honkingforfreedom.com.
Mm-hmm.
But also what I've been doing, because I just started experimenting with it. I'm trying to help people with kind of a positive vibe and get into that positive headspace moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to be a streamer, but I'm like, I'll start doing it. Because I got in touch with Scott Adams, actually.
Oh, he's a successful one, yeah.
He's awesome, but he's so nice. Anyways, so I'm starting to stream most when I'm not in the truck, when I'm in Toronto, honkingforfreedom.locals.com, or on YouTube, my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/BJD online, my initials online.
Mm-hmm.
And I welcome everybody come in. We're talking about the commission. So we're talking about, negative stuff, but from a positive frame, saying, life is great. We got to focus on all of these little externalities, these negative things. We don't have to allow them to affect us the same way we tried not to allow them to affect us in Ottawa. And that's why we tried to maintain that positive vibe throughout. So follow me on my streams every day and come join the comments, come join the chat, call me a Fed or an agent, whatever. I don't care. And let's just hang out and all come together,
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much for coming out, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Thanks.
Cheers. And thank you guys for coming on this impromptu special live stream. And if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for tuning in to what was over an hour, almost an hour and a half conversation with BJ Dichter.
Oh, wow.
And we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.